All right, how is it going, my magnificent sons of bitches? Now, I can only put this up on Twitter and Facebook right now because, well, YouTube, they decided to go ahead and give me a permaban because they got a lot of bitches working at the fucking, the powers that be, the administrators, the advisors. It's kind of like the stupid highlight button over there on Facebook. All these people in Silicon Valleys, why do they even have a job, to be honest with you? Elon, fire everybody that works at Twitter right now. If you're in
Fact.
California, move the motherfucker to Texas. All right. But me and Stephen Rose are here to go ahead and talk about some good old college football rigging. And that's exactly what's going on right now in college football and has for years and years and years. Now, Stephen Rose, as you know, I tend to do these videos. I usually do them solo, actually. This is the first time that I've had somebody co host with me. This is the time I've had a wingman doing these rigged college football videos because ultimately I come out, I say exactly why these games are going to be rigged. And whenever I make my prediction, Steven, I've gotten a lot of heat for this shit, but I've pretty much called the fucking, I've called them really from the championships. I didn't do a championship game prediction this year because it's like, fuck it. Every time I call these games, people sit there and say I'm a conspiracy theorist. Oh no, no, you know what? I'm a prophet. All right, I can see into the future, and that's how I'm getting all my predictions right. But I figured we would do Stephen Rose, the New Year's Six in the college playoffs. So, what do you think about that?
Well, first of all, I'd want to say that it sucks that you were banned because I guess a professional team of medical doctors outweighed your medical professional opinion and were able to discredit you for some odd reason. And then, secondly, the conspiracy theorists, lame arguments are down the toilet now because I think the writing's on the wall with what we're about to discuss in this video in regards to how rigged that this playoff system is, because there's a lot that I told you before this show started that I had to say. So, yeah, we're going to be kicking off all the games. We're going to be discussing, what is exactly going to happen. And conspiracy theorist or no conspiracy theorist, it's facts, and that's what's going to happen.
Okay, okay, Stephen Rose. Let's start with the first game. Let's go ahead and start with by all means, dude. This is kind of I call this the hypocritical game, right? Because somehow Liberty made a New Year's Six Day Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl. This is like their Super Bowl. Really, at the end of the day, this is going to be as close to fucking a championship as Liberty will probably ever get. But with that being said, Liberty is going to go ahead, and they are the sacrificial lamb to the future Big Ten, Oregon. So I'll go ahead and get your thoughts on this game. Then I'm going to tell you exactly what's going to happen and
All
how.
right, now before you tell me what's going to happen, from my understanding, that Oregon's doesn't even know if they're going to even be playing any of their starters. I think Nick's has already said that he's not making any guarantees he's playing. It makes logically no sense to play in these New Year's Six bowl games. I understand in reference to the college playoff, it's the closest thing to the college playoff you're going to get to because it's a New Year's Six bowl game, and these are games are predominantly played December 31st or January 1st, some of them. And so, of course, this game's going to get a lot of hype up. So for Liberty to have an opportunity to take on Oregon, first of all, I'm not going to take away from that. I think it's going to be a decent matchup. They went 13-0. Obviously, they're not making a case for a college playoff. Basically, strength of schedule and, of course, who they are as a school. Unfortunately, they're not going to be able to get in. That's why it would have been very important to have a top 12 this year. They probably should have done this 30 years ago. But nonetheless, I think Liberty, my opinion, before you sound off on it, I think Liberty's going to win this game. They're going to get kind of that push, and they're going to say, oh, well, this is the run. This is what the college playoffs is going to look like next year for the top 12. And Oregon, I mean, if Nick's plays, that would be great. But the question is, are these players going to take that game seriously? I think if you're looking at it from Oregon's standpoint, I don't see why they should. But again, Nick Saban's already propping them up, and he loves to instigate. So he went in there and said, quote, well, the games are just as important as the college playoffs, so go make sure you get your tickets to go check Liberty out. Biggest troll job ever, which I'm not going to lie, I think Nick Saban is a pretty damn good troll. And I'll go more into that later, but I predict Liberty will go into that game and they'll win because I think two things are going to happen. One, either Oregon is going to start their starters but not take the game as seriously. So Liberty will win to get that sort of push, right, to their undefeated season. Or number two, they're just not going to start the starters at all, and Liberty will just play their second and third string guys on Oregon, and they'll just squash them. And either way, I think Liberty will get the push. I'll go ahead and let Prodigal give his prediction for that.
Okay, now one thing that we know, right? Yeah, Liberty got in. This is a hypocrisy bowl because Liberty got in because they won their games and they just wouldn't. But whenever other teams, it comes down to other teams, then those games don't matter for fuck all. So Stephen Rose says that Bo Nix may not play. Ultimately, if I'm an NFL person that's looking to draft a quarterback, I'm taking that in consideration that you didn't show up. You kind of walked out on your team on the biggest moment, on the biggest stage. You're kind of selfish. That's what I'm seeing whenever I'm seeing you not saying, I'm going to sit out this game. This is the biggest game. Your team needs you at this point in time. So I have to take this in consideration for sure whenever I'm going to go ahead and consider picking anybody for the NFL draft. That's just me. So, with that being said, what do we know about this game? You got Liberty, that's kind of a jobber. It was gonna, yeah, and it was gonna be either Liberty, Tulane. It was gonna be one of these other second-tier teams that we're gonna go get in. And I understand that you've had your Boise States, that you've had your TCUs from the Mountain West and whatnot. However, with that being said, you're like, oh well, Oregon's not going to take this game seriously. Their starters are going to sit out. Here's one thing that you're forgetting, though. Next year, you talked about that 12-team playoff. You need to put yourself in a better position. If you go out and you lay an egg to Liberty, you're not putting yourself in the very, very best positions. So I'm going to have to sit there and disagree. I think that Oregon may make it look close. I think that they may not embarrass, but I got Oregon by at least 10. I think Oregon knows that they're going to end up going into another conference that's going to be more competitive. Well, I don't say it's going to necessarily be more competitive, but you're going to have more blue bloods there that you're going to have to navigate around. And you certainly don't want to start off the season with that loss to Liberty. Oh, well, they fucking lost to Liberty. They lost their quarterback. They're not shit without Bo Nix. So even if it is the backups, then backups are going to come out to play because they're going to want to go ahead and put themselves in a position to get in one of those 12 spots. So we'll go on to the next game, Stephen, and then I'll let you have your take again, and then I'll go ahead and say exactly how I think it's going to play out. So the next game is the Peach Bowl. And let me see. Is it the Peach Bowl or is it the Cotton Bowl? It's the Cotton Bowl. It's the Cotton Bowl. It's the Cotton Bowl. Yeah.
All right.
So we have Missouri facing Ohio State.
All right. Well, again, this is a matchup here. It's going to be very good. Missouri has always been like, in your terms of a jobber school. The only players I know that went to there was Chase Daniels, and what was the other quarterback? Was it Blaine Gabbert? I think Blaine Gabbert also went to Missouri. Don't know too many players that came from that school, but I will say that this would be and who are they taking on again? Ohio State?
Yeah.
Okay, so Ohio State obviously is a team that argumentatively probably could have made the college playoff this year, that the NCAA was beefing up, with the Marvin Harrison Jr. ordeal, and trying to give that push as a top 4 team. Obviously, they weren't one of those top 4 teams, but nonetheless, this should be an okay matchup. I mean, I like Missouri's defense, but at the end of the day, I'm not going with the underdog in this one. I do think that Ohio State has a lot to prove, even though I know it's not a playoff game, but I think they're going to take this one a little bit more seriously because of the fact that, Marvin Harrison Jr. wants to have a high draft stock. I think in this case, he wants to put up stat pad for his receiving, because he might be a top 5 pick in the NFL. I could see in that case why Ohio State would probably put their starters in, of course. Unlike the other game that I predicted, that probably might not be the case. But nonetheless, I think that Ohio State will beat Missouri. I honestly, I don't see this being a close game. You're looking at probably 38-16. I mean, I like Missouri. Don't get me wrong. They finished ninth in the country. That's something to look forward to. But at the end of the day, I think Ohio State is the better team all around. They got better offensive weapons, better offensive output. I'll put Missouri's defense probably over Ohio State's. But at the end of the day, I think it'll just be too much. I think Ohio State wins. They win big.
Okay, well, here's the one thing that we do know, right? With college football. And if you've never watched college football, this is, I'm going to go ahead and let you in on a little bit of, inside football, as it was. And that's the fact that college football, there's two conferences right now in college football, and that's the SEC and the Big Ten. Now, they say it's the Power Five, but they don't give a shit about the other conferences. And we've seen that this year in the selection community. So, like you said, you have Missouri, which, is an SEC team. You have Ohio State, which is a Big Ten team. Now, both these teams are in the conferences that they're going to want in the playoffs for next year. However, with that being said, Ohio State's a blue blood, and these these NCAA committees going to want they want draws. You know what I'm saying? So you've got Hulk Hogan facing, trying to figure somebody to compare.
The Macho Man Randy Savage or the Ultimate Warrior?
No. Those guys were main eventers.
Okay, so you're saying it's going to be Hulk Hogan
Chris
against
Jericho. It'd probably be like Chris Jericho. You know what I'm saying? Nah, Lex Luger was at least a little bit of a draw.
Okay.
Chris Jericho is kind of like an Eddie Guerrero or Chris Jericho.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
In WCW. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, gotcha.
Those guys.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I meant, I think that Oregon will probably be competitive for a half, but I do believe that they're going to go ahead and give this one to the bigger powerhouse, Ohio State. This is kind of like your reward. You're not going to make the playoffs, which is a good thing. It's a good thing that you didn't make the playoffs, Ohio State, because once we get to the playoffs, then all bets are off. But I'm with you on this one right here. I do believe this is exactly what's going to happen, and there's no way that this fucking committee is going to allow Ohio State to lose to Missouri. They're going to make it look like it's competitive for a little while until, Ohio State pulls out with it. It may be even in the fourth quarter. But Ohio State's going to go ahead and go away with it. They want Marvin Harrison Jr. to go in the draft and, everybody to trip over themselves to try to draft this kid. Even though we got some pretty good wide receivers in Texas, but they're all going to go after Marvin Harrison Jr. They're going to
absolutely, and so he lives off his father's name. Plus, he can play. He reminds me a lot of his dad. His mechanics, his speed, acceleration.
Except he's like a foot taller.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah. So I mean, that's definitely what I see going on. So let's get into the Peach Bowl now, because this one is going to be one that's going to be really, really hard. You got Ole Miss versus Penn State. What do you got?
All right, I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, I was rooting for Penn State to beat Ohio State like I do every year. Penn State's always kind of one of those teams that can give you a draw, but just as they want to climb to the top of that ladder, they get kind of buried and owned by the Michigans and the Ohio States, kind of get a reminder of where they're at. But I feel like they're kind of like they're a mid-carder, but they really should be put into a main event. And, I like Ole Miss. They're always kind of a team that's just there. The only player I know that went to Ole Miss was Eli Manning. Don't really know too many players that came from Ole Miss. Not saying there's not any good players, just don't know too many. But I will say that I like both of these teams. Don't get me wrong. Ole Miss is still kind of one of those pesky teams that are always just there. They can compete real well. And this year they have a really explosive offense. Pretty much the same with Penn State. So obviously both teams have a little something more to play for. in this, and plus they want to promote the top 12 for next year. So what not better than to promote these New Year's Six bowl games at this juncture? So I could possibly see the starters playing for both of these teams. It's going to be a very good game. I could see Penn State coming out of this with the 19-16 victory. It's going to be a very close game. It's not going to be a shootout. It's going to be a low-scoring game, maybe possibly up to mid-20s tops. But go ahead and give me Penn State to win, so they get kind of that push, and they get that solidified. They get the whole hoist that Peach Trophy, and they get to walk around with the Peach Trophy. They'll get a call from Nick Saban saying, "Congratulations, you guys get to eat all the peaches you want all night. Peaches, free peaches for you." And then they'll have probably like a little bowl with peaches in it. So they kind of have their finger foods after the game, and they'll get a thumb up, and that's pretty much it. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and pick Penn State.
And the thumbs up from Nick Saban is probably worth more than the Peach Bowl trophy in and of itself. So, okay, here's the deal that we're talking about Penn State, right? Mm-hmm. Penn State is, pretty much a blue blood. They're up there. You know what I'm saying? They're in the
They're
dog.
A little bit above a mid-Carter. But go ahead.
They've had Kerry Collins. They've had some phenomenal running backs that come out of Penn State. They have like prestige at Penn State, which, like you said, Ole Miss, they're kind of like one of those mid-card teams, like a Chris Jericho, or like you said, a Chris Benoit or a Juventud Guerrero. That's kind of like what they are. Really fun to watch every once in a while, but you know that this is where they're going to be. And so, I mean, no doubt they want to go ahead and keep this game close, just like you said. Give me 24-21, Penn State. Maybe Ole Miss makes a comeback, gets an interception at the end of the game, whatever it is. But they definitely want Penn State in that 12-team playoff because, as I've said before, there's only two conferences in college football right now, and that's the Big Ten and the SEC. So they're going to want Penn State for sure. And they're going to try and get, like I said, whenever that 12th playoff team comes up, you think shit's going to change, and it's not. So, all right, Steven, here we go. We're going to go ahead and get into the playoffs before we go into the Orange Bowl. Because I have the Orange Bowl saved for last for a particular reason.
Okay.
So, we'll go into Alabama and Michigan. And I'll let you go ahead and see what you think who you think is going to win, and then I'll go ahead and tell you who's going to win probably.
All right. Well, I mean, should we predict the winners and then go into our belief as to how the NCAA is going to apply their method, or should we just go into our predictions first?
Go into your predictions.
I don't want to give it all away,
Yeah. I'll go in. I'm going to go with my method and tell you, but I mean, who do you think's going to win? I'll go ahead and let you.
I'm going to be honest with you, man. I know our views on this are probably not going to be entirely aligned, although I see the point you made. I will say that I do believe that Michigan is going to beat Alabama. Okay. I think that the whole cheating scandal and the whole John Harbaugh being suspended is going to give them a little bit of motivation to play a team that was kind of controversial that shouldn't have been there. And in my opinion, I think that Michigan has something to prove. I think that they desperately want to win, not only for the school.
No. Hey, Steven, real quick, because I don't listen to fake fucking ESPN bullshit news. What was the cheating scandal about?
Allegedly, they were sign stealing.
Oh, well, that's fucking stupid. All right. Never mind. We've heard this shit before.
And stealing signs or whatever, sort of like what the Astros were.
And the Patriots, and they have to do the trash cans. Yeah, I mean, nobody listens to the trash ass shit, but okay.
Yeah, apparently John Harbaugh got suspended, and he came back from his suspension. McCarthy's going into the NFL, possibly going to be one of the top quarterbacks in the draft. I think that this would look very good for Michigan to overcome those odds and to be able to beat a guy who seems to find his way in the playoffs every fucking year, it seems. Even with 2 losses, I'm just kidding. Maybe I'm going over the board on that because no 2-loss teams ever made a top 4. But just kind of making a joke out there that, the losses don't count in the SEC, but they definitely count in every other conference.
Every other conference, man.
So I'm going to go with Michigan to win, and I think Michigan wins 37-24. I'm telling you, I like this McCarthy kid. I like the Michigan. I'm on the Michigan bandwagon. Give me Michigan.
Okay. So, yeah, now you know for a fucking fact that I said that Michigan was going to win the title last year. You know that because I've always said that Michigan, and I told you that Michigan would probably beat us for the title. I told you that pretty much at the beginning of the year. Before we even got to this point, I said if it comes down to Texas and Michigan, Michigan will probably win. They've only been here for 2 years in a row. They've only had to beat Ohio State. They've always had to overcome all this stuff, all the negativity from the mainstream media to go ahead. So I'm with you on that one. I am with you. That's what I would like to see in a fair, real world with a fully functional brain scenario. I agree with you on that one. However, not going to happen. Not going to happen because the committee ends up putting in Alabama. Now, to make a long story much, much longer, as you say, Texas goes into Alabama, pretty much controls the game, spots Alabama 10 points in the lead, only to come back. And everybody says, well, and the whole deal was, right, they're the team that shouldn't be here. They got in here, which is why I'm saving the Orange Bowl for the very last part of this video. This is, just getting to that point. So I'm not going to get into all of that, what I've already told Steven, how we know that this is complete and utter fucking bullshit. But with that being said, so they go ahead, shoehorn in Alabama. So now everybody is losing their shit. Twitter was trending, no SEC, whenever Alabama won, because they knew that there wasn't going to be an SEC team in if, all the stuff fell right, and it did. But whoa, hold up, ESPN says there ain't no way in fuck that we're going to have a playoff without an SEC team in it. And that's exactly what they did. So they said, well, we can't put in Alabama without putting in Texas. So they had to clear that shit out. So with this being said, you have everybody on fucking ESPN telling you how fucking Alabama, this is what they sound like right now. Steven on ESPN, on the Pat McAfee show, Stephen A. Smith, Mike Greenberg, what's that, Kirk Herbstreit, they sound like trying to explain how the fuck they got Alabama into the playoffs. That's what they sound like. So, with that being said, now that they had to screw over a team that's undefeated, that hasn't lost a game all year, won their conference championship, said that Alabama is the better team. They're not, and I'll explain why later. However, with that being said, they have to justify Alabama being in this position.
Facts.
And like Stephen Rose said, Michigan has the experience. They have the playoff experience. They have experience on their football team. They're the most experienced football team right now in the playoffs.
And they're most exciting team to watch.
Right.
Besides Texas,
Yeah.
Not being biased, but
Texas is pretty close to Michigan as far as experience, but they don't have the playoff experience for sure. But, not Sam Ellinger, but Quinn Ewers has been there for a while. You know what I'm saying? So, he's kind of got a little bit more experience than any other team, except for maybe Washington. Washington has a lot of experience, and that's going to be a good fucking game. But with this being said, Michigan should get this. This should be Michigan's year, but it's not. And I'm going to tell you that I got Alabama probably beating Michigan some 31-21. They'll beat them by 10 points.
What do you think you're doing?
Yeah. They're going to be like, flag on the play. Unnecessary tomfoolery, unnecessary tap dancing on the sidelines and celebrating. Well, that's what they're going to be doing. They're going to be calling all kinds of phantom fucking calls.
And here's the best part. I think Marvin told me this earlier. He said that but before the end of the game, they're going to bring a big dumpster truck to the side of Michigan, and they're just going to bury a big pile of horse manure on John Harbaugh. Like,
Yeah.
that's the complete burial of that guy completely.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's exactly what the fuck is going to happen, man. And, why do you think that whenever they put Alabama in, everybody that plays for Michigan knew that it was going to be them versus Florida State? They knew it. They was like, well, there's no way that Alabama makes a bowl. They lost a head-to-head to Texas. They can't get into the bowl. Texas was ranked ahead of them. So the first open playoff spot that came open would go to Texas, not to Alabama. But the NCAA said, no, fuck that shit. We'll just kick Florida's ass right out. And that's the first time that I've ever heard of somebody losing their playoff spot because another team lost their championship.
No, I'll even go a case further. Florida State's the first Power 5 team to go undefeated, win their conference title game, and not make the college playoff. And you're talking about, 12 years of the college playoff? We've already had, or nine years of college playoff. And that's the first time that's ever happened to a Power 5 conference.
Well, okay. The deal is, right, is that if Georgia would have won their bowl, then Florida State would have still been in the playoffs, and they would have had to play Georgia in the first round. Georgia. Uh-oh.
No, that was yours. Let me turn my camera off. Let me see if that's it. Go ahead.
I kept telling you that Alabama was going to end up winning that national title. That's exactly what happened. So, for Alabama because Georgia wasn't that great. But like I said, I'm going to save that for the Orange Bowl. So let's go ahead and move on to the next game, because I know you want to go ahead and talk about this game. I know you have high hopes for this game, and that's Texas and Washington. So you start.
All right. Well, like I said, I think this is going to be a very good game. Washington's not a team you want to sleep on. A very good team. And after beating Oregon, who they could have lost that game, it went down to the final drive. I understand that. Washington has a lot to look forward to in playing this game. Texas is inexperienced at this level of play. We've never made a college playoff before. Washington hasn't either. So we both have those ins and outs going into this game. But I'm going to say, the championship game being in Texas means a lot. I think it would make in Houston preferably. I think it makes sense to me to go ahead and put Texas in there and win the semifinal, so that the game it's basically like a Super Bowl site, right? Like a team that goes to the Super Bowl in the same city. It's kind of like that, Tampa Bay did it, and then the Rams did it, of course. And now I think the Longhorns have an opportunity to play in Houston, which is 2 hours outside of Austin anyway, basically. And I got Texas to win 35-25.
Hang on real quick. Before you get into that, I just want to make one thing I'll go ahead and let you get into your predictions for that. But I'm not sure if I want to have another fucking Commie Cough lockdown if Texas plays at home. Just going to make that out there real quick. But go ahead, Steve.
All right. Well, I might have rushed to 35-25. I'm going to go ahead and say Texas wins 38-31. It was a very close game, but at the very end, Quinn Ewers makes the game-winning touchdown drive. I think that puts Texas slightly over Washington and puts Texas into the championship game. I'll go ahead and let you sound off on it.
Okay. Like I said, we don't want any Commie Cough lockdowns if fucking Texas gets into the championship game. All right? This ain't one of those things where we're going to rig it for Tom Brady. Stay at home. Stay safe. Bullshit that you like to put out there. That fucking subliminal bullshit that you assholes like to put out there. With that being said, me and myself, right? I think that when you look at Washington's a solid team. They're probably the second most experienced team. Mike Penix Jr. is, putting up ridiculous numbers. Washington's a legitimate team. that's not like when we played Alabama. I know everybody thinks Alabama's the goods. I mean, I wasn't worried. I was telling Steven we'll be in Alabama. I can just a little bit different of a story though, because Washington has the experience and they can beat us. So I meant, when we're looking at rigging, whenever it comes down to Alabama and Michigan, Michigan is so much better than Alabama that they're probably going to throw a fucking flag at the coin toss. You know, you got heads. You called heads. Here's a flag. You called tails. That's what's going to happen, right? That's going to be in that game. This game is going to be pretty good. However, like Stephen Rose said, Washington is a solid team. They're a solid team, and it's going to be close. And I think Texas, keep it close because guess what? Both Washington is going into the Big Ten, which if you go back and look at this year, the preseason, if you go back and look at the preseason rankings, you had, what was it? Number 1 was Georgia. Number 2 was Michigan. Number 3 was Ohio State. Number 4 was Alabama. Number 5 was LSU. Number 6 was Penn State. And then in the back end. But the deal is that apparently they're trying to make a big super conferences with these stupid blue bloods in the SEC and in the Big Ten. So with that being said, Texas is going to the SEC, so they're going to be pretty safe. They are a blue blood. They are a powerhouse. People know who Texas is. Washington is not a blue blood. So with that being said, if you rig this game against Michigan, right? Well, then you might as well as rig the fucking whole damn thing for Alabama. Might as well. And I told you this the other day. You just might as well as go ahead and rig Nick Saban, and maybe Nick Saban retires. I think that's a possibility that he could retire this year. So go ahead, give his ass another title so we can get his ass out of here, and this conference becomes Texas's pretty much, essentially, is what's going to happen. So with that being said, this is the first time Texas has made a bowl, a playoff. Texas, Oklahoma has taken up and fucking wasted oxygen getting to this damn playoff spot just to go ahead. So Texas goes ahead, loses in the first round. It's not a biggie. I think that Washington ends up beating. They have the experience. They end up beating Texas. It's not one of those ones that they have to throw flags like they will in the Alabama game. And it's not going to be set up as much. But I got them doing what they have to do to make sure that Washington gets in. So it's going to be Washington and Alabama for me. Now we'll go ahead. You've got Michigan and Texas. I have Washington and Alabama. So go ahead, and who do you got winning the national championship?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I like both of these teams. I think this is going to be a very good matchup. It's kind of like one of those too good to be true moments. I think Texas puts up a fight, Michigan puts up a fight, but at the end of the day, I think Michigan is slightly the better team. I think they find a way to get the win, 31-28 over Texas, and I got Michigan winning the whole thing.
All right. So, let me tell you something. If Washington gets put up against Alabama, then they don't have a shot. It's going to be Alabama. The only reason, like I said, there are 2 reasons why I think that this scenario is going to play out. Is one, it's in Texas. You try to rig that motherfucker for Alabama and Texas and see if you don't get some beer bottle. It'll look like fucking the Cleveland Brown beer bottle.
Bottlegate against Jaguars in '99, yeah.
That's what it's going to look like over there. You better fucking go ahead and make sure that you got the Secret Service protecting them damn referees. Because you're going to have motherfuckers. Me and Stephen Rose are going to be fucking, if it's Texas, we'll be there. If Texas, me and Stephen Rose has already decided we're going to go to like his local Buffalo Wild Wings, and we're going to watch it really close to the stadium. And if halftime, if Alabama's leading Texas 38-10, me and Stephen are going to drive our ass down to Reliant Stadium, and then we're going to be waiting outside that fucking stadium for fucking Nick Saban. But, that's what's going to fucking happen. But no, anyway, seriously, I think that's why they don't want this motherfucker. I don't think that they want Texas Longhorns in here. They want Texas in the series so everybody will invest that are coming, But I don't think that they want Texas in the bowl because they know if fucking Texas plays Alabama, then – but if Washington plays Alabama, the Texas fans are more than likely, especially the fucking shields that I'm in this group with right now, that this Facebook post is going to be put into. They'll all go for Alabama. You know what I'm saying? They already think they're in the fucking SEC, dude. They've been ass kissing the SEC since I've gotten in. So go ahead and give me Alabama, and then Nick Saban retiring probably sometime before the beginning of next season, calling it quits, getting a successor in there, and then Texas going ahead, taking in the role of Alabama. Now, next year, whenever Arch, they're setting it up for Arch. Quinn, you're nice. We'll give you a couple of playoff runs. We'll go ahead and say, hey, this team has potential. We got Quinn. He's a pretty decent quarterback. But when we put Arch in there, we're going to win championships, and that's what's going to happen. So
I'm going to put it like this. There's 4 storylines they can go with here to crown a champion, if you want to make it a WWE storyline. Number 1, the justification of why Alabama made the playoffs is why you would ultimately win the championship, sending Saban off in the sunset with his 7th ring or 8th ring or however many he has. And him doing the Jordan fist pump before he leaves, and him just giving a big FU and laughing about the whole thing and just selling off. Or he could just troll and say, well, I just decided I'm just going to go ahead and stick it out since Texas is coming over here anyway. Well, somebody else has got to bury him. It's got to be our job too. So here you go. Then number 2, you got Michigan and the whole John Harbaugh scandal. And did Michigan cheat? They got the Astro storyline regurgitated. Let's just go ahead and give that win to John Harbaugh, and that way we try to get him the hell up out of here. Go back to the NFL. Number 3, you got Washington and the ultimate Cinderella story that nobody's even talking about. You can try to, let them win a title and say, hey, look, this is the team Cincinnati should have been or TCU should have been, to emulate a team like Washington, which is highly unlikely that they'll go with. Or number 4, you got Texas Longhorns becoming the new heel, and Nick Saban's putting over Texas as the new team in the SEC, and Texas can go over there and sort of be that bad guy image that Alabama has, and they'll be the new heel. So they could go with that as well.
I hope they run Alabama and Georgia out of the SEC like they ran A&M, Nebraska, Colorado, Missouri out of the Big 12. But we know it's going to be the Alabama storyline. So, because even if it is, they're going to have it's about the sacred thing, streak, and stuff like that. It's going to be the Alabama shit. Because, like I said, regardless, Michigan gets screwed out of the deal. Michigan already knows they're going to get screwed. And that's why they were like, oh. It had nothing to do with they were afraid of playing Alabama. Because Alabama is not as good as Ohio State and probably not as good as Penn State, to be honest with you. And I'll get into this whenever we get in, because I'm sure you're going to talk about the ESPN talking points whenever we get into this next game.
Yeah, then I'm going to give my personal view of all this shit.
Now okay. So you got Florida State versus Georgia in the Orange Bowl. I'm going to let you go ahead and give yours.
Okay, this is going to be the hilarious part because it's going to go into my conspiracy theorist talking points. I think Nick Saban is ultimate troll. I think he's like the Bill Belichick of the NCAA, but only he's just an ultimate troll. He has a lot of manipulation on this, and he's gonna do like basically what he's gonna go to Kirby Smart and he's gonna be like, hey, that them Florida State boys have been talking shit about you all week there, boy. They're saying they're gonna kick your ass. You gotta step this one up for the SEC. And then Kirby's like, well, we're the 4th best team, and say, look, goddamn it, I don't give a shit about that, boy. You're gonna have to represent the SEC. You're gonna have to win this game there, boy. So the Florida Statesman, you're gonna let Florida State talk to you like that, Kirby? He's gonna pump Kirby's head up to believe that this game is important, so Georgia will show up. Then Saban gives a call to Florida State. He's gonna be like, hey, congratulations on making your playoff game there, boy. And this is a chance for you to prove yourself for next year to determine if you really one of the top 12 teams. You got to beat the 2-time defending champion, the Georgia Bulldogs, okay? The 2-time defending champions. And by the way, they've been talking a lot of shit about how y'all didn't deserve to make the playoffs. Personally, I think y'all deserved it. But now Georgia's saying y'all didn't deserve it. So y'all need to go out there and whoop their candy ass real quick on New Year's bowl in Athens, Georgia. You got to go in there and kick their ass real quick there, boy. and prove it that you one of the playoff teams for next year there, boy. And so Saban's going to instigate this game for both of these teams to show up the ultimate troll job. They're going to show up, and I think Florida State beats Georgia by just a field goal. It'll be a close game. I'm going 27-24. Florida State's still a little angry they didn't make it. They're going to play with their third string. I don't really know if Georgia really gives a shit, if Kirby Smart cares if they win or lose. But Nick Saban's going to hype this game up, and anytime you have Nick Saban behind the scenes instigating, it's going to be a good one. But Florida State's going to win, and that's what's going to keep the talks going. I'm going to go ahead and pass this mic to Prodigal.
All right. So we got Florida State and Georgia. Now, give you a little bit of a backstory. Florida State won all their fucking games. And you know, they end up scheduling LSU, which was ranked number 5, which should have never been ranked number 5. They showed the people that run the committees, you people in the Associated Press that talk about sports that have your, you know, 6-figure, 7-figure jobs. It's fucking none of you motherfuckers deserve that shit. Just to be honest, you can't be intellectually honest at all. So everybody's talking about, well, Georgia was number 1, and they won the last 2 national championships. Okay, I want to make one thing perfectly fucking clear whenever we're talking about this. That's not the national champions. They're not the national champion. The national championships play for the Philadelphia Eagles and the fucking Green Bay Packers. Because in 2022, in 2022 NFL draft, you lost 15 players. And in the 2023 NFL draft, you lost 10. That's 25. That's like a whole fucking team that has left your ass.
Yeah, it's not the same players in this championship. It's a whole set of new players, yeah.
Whenever Georgia started this season, they had the 112th strength of schedule. ESPN says it's the 37th. No, it wasn't. What's their signature win? Against a fucking Missouri team that was 6-5 or 6-7 last year, that lost in the Gasparilla Bowl against Wake Forest. That's the signature win that you're talking about. Are you talking about Ole Miss, the that lost to Texas Tech, 42-25? Are you talking about that's your signature win last year? You know what I'm saying? Just the beginning of this year, some of these games are. You know. What's it, Tennessee, who's what, 8-4? These are your signature wins that Alabama has had. And who were they scheduling out of conference? Ball State? Fucking Middle Tennessee? These are the fucking people that Georgia was playing. So Georgia knew that if Georgia knew that they were really going to go back and repeat and dominate and be a third-year champion, they would have at least tried to schedule, hell, even if you scheduled a fucking Kansas State, that would be, you know, respectable. Why not schedule a West Virginia at least? You know, hell, if you scheduled, you know, Oregon State, you know, they're pretty decent this year. You know, schedule Iowa, who played against Michigan. You know, but they knew that they weren't going to be competitive this year. That's why I kept telling you, Stephen. I said Alabama has the 8th ranked. You know, strength of schedule. We have the 9th. Texas does. So I said, whenever it comes to time for Alabama to play Georgia, Alabama's going to beat Georgia. And they control that whole game. So to sit there and tell me that, well, Georgia's just unbeatable. Oh, Georgia's just got this super strong. So like you, I do believe that Florida State is not only better, they're a hell of a lot better than Georgia. That defense is top 20 defense. And the sheer fact is that fucking Georgia has been given a placebo ranked at number 1. They shouldn't have been. I would have given them number 7 just because of their strength of schedule. Well, they just won the national championship. But whenever you lose 25 players, then you don't get the consideration of being number 1. You have to work your way back up to that. Alabama should have been ranked number 3. That was probably about right, but that's because of their strength of schedule. So they should have been favored to win the SEC from the get-go. You know, a case could be made for like a Texas A&M. Some of these other kids that have been there a lot longer, have more experience, would have an opportunity. But that's how legitimately college football should go. You don't just automatically get considered and have half a fucking conference ranked in the top, uh, 10. You know what I'm saying? That
Facts.
doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Why would you go ahead and schedule Georgia at number one when you know they're going to have to play Alabama? And then why would you have to go ahead and schedule Alabama at number four when they have to play it, LSU? And then you got LSU at number five. You are wasting fucking spots in that top 10. And that's why you're constantly seeing teams jump over teams and jump back and then not. And so they're not doing their job right. And I'm not asking, they'll say, oh, well, they'll tell you that it's not going to be fair. Well, I would like some consistency. If you're going to do it this one way, do it that one way all the time. Don't do
Facts.
it one way for one team and then completely other fucking way. So is
Facts.
fucking better than Florida State? No, they're not. They're not. You're just sitting here making up bullshit, trying to fling it on the wall, pray for it to stick. That's exactly what you're doing.
Facts.
I have a Georgia team here that is not the same team that won two national championships back to back.
Not
This
even
is a
close.
different team, and there's nothing wrong, believe it or not, with being bad. Doing like Alabama did. I'll give Nick Saban credit. Doing like Alabama did. Scheduling a strong strength. When you got a young team like that, you want a stronger strength so they can start to get experience. Oh yeah, you may not make the playoffs this year, but at least your kids are getting experience and they're playing against the best competition. So whenever you play in your conference, you're going to be ready just like Alabama was when they played against Georgia.
Mm.
So Georgia would have been better off just to go ahead and play some powerhouses at the beginning of the year, and then they would have went ahead, had a stronger strength of schedule, been able to make a case maybe, potentially, and then, but that's not what they did. Everybody else did exactly what they had to do to get in, including Florida State. And they won the games that they had to win. And they went undefeated. They won their championship. And then all of a sudden, Alabama beats Georgia like I knew they would. Alabama, which, like I said, Alabama's not one of the best teams, I don't think. If they're good, they're a solid team and they have a lot of potential. Those kids have a lot of potential, but they're all young. There's nothing wrong with not being the best team right now and a young team because you learn, you mature. Colt McCoy, who's one of our guys, he didn't have great seasons his first 2 years, but he ended up developing into being that quarterback, being that leader that took that team to the national championship, regardless if he won or lost. You know what I'm saying? And that's how you get it, is through experience. But what the NCAA is doing is they're saying, well, we've got to have the SEC. So you go ahead, and this is why the quarterbacks, I tell you all the time, like your Alabama quarterbacks and, your Georgia quarterbacks and some of these quarterbacks that come from like your Ohio State, they're not as good. And this is why you slept on C.J. Stroud. They're not as good because they're protected by college football. And like C.J. Stroud, that was a different monster. Whenever I watched him play, I said, this kid has it.
You compared him to John Elway. You told me that. I remember you told me that.
Yeah, I seen how he played, and I seen how his work paid off. And so that was a little bit different of a monster. But whenever these kids are coming out, like a Trevor Lawrence, who's been protected his whole career, gets in the NFL, Joe Burrow wasn't like that. Joe Burrow had to work. He was a third-round pick going into that season, and then he worked his way up into that first pick. That's why Joe Burrows is so good. And this is whenever ESPN comes out and tells you you've got to get Bryce Young and what's the Milroe kid that's in Alabama right now, they're going to end up making a case for him. And if he keeps on the track that he's right now where he's building and he's getting that experience and he's taking on legitimate opponents, he'll be solid, eventually. I mean, you're probably you have potential. But the sheer fact is, when you look at Bryce Young and when you look at Trevor Lawrence and whenever you look at Fields and shit, these quarterbacks that has been protected, what happens when they get in the NFL? They suck. And so, this is why I tell you that. As I said, normally I was telling you to get Bijan. I went back and watched film on CJ, and I said, this is a different monster altogether. This isn't what I'm used to. But anyway, so I do believe that, first off, right, You got Georgia going in to Florida to play Florida State. You've got a pissed off Florida State. This is the same kind of scenario that they're going to try to avoid with Alabama. But you're going to have a pissed off Florida crowd there when they're playing Georgia. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Not that they're actually better than Georgia. They're actually better than Georgia. ESPN will fill your head full of bullshit and tell you all this and go through the numbers and then do some analytical bullshit and have Stephen A. Smith, it's not doing Alabama, like that shit. Like stuff. He can do all that buffoonery all the hell he wants to, and it doesn't make a lick of shit to anybody who's a real sports fan. The only reason I watched this time is because it's one of the few times where I said, "Oh, well, they fucked off. They fucked over Florida State, so I'm going to go ahead and because I don't really watch ESPN. I don't watch a lot of sports anymore because of this stuff right here." But with that being said, if Florida State wins, then anybody who wins the national championship would have to essentially, if they were any kind of decent, would split it with Florida State. It's, if I'm Texas and I win the national championship, I'm saying, look, you guys were supposed to be in there. They screwed you over. They took, they kind of, they didn't want to take us without taking Alabama. And they knew they couldn't take Alabama without taking us, so they had to kick y'all out. Kind of fault for beating Alabama. Kind of your Alabama's fault for beating Georgia. This is why you're screwed. However, I don't think that the committee, because the committee has looked like buffoons. Let's be real. Everybody who's talked about college football playoff committee this week have looked like utter babbling buffoons.
Facts.
So, they have to legitimize this right now. Otherwise, if Alabama goes out there and gets the door's roof blown off of it, fucking Michigan wins 35-14 over Alabama. Yeah. And I'll go ahead and give them 21, 35-21. Alabama puts up a solid fight, but ultimately Michigan has too much experience. They have too much speed. They're too good for Alabama. This is not like a team. This isn't Texas that Alabama's playing, and they dropped 35 on them. This is just a hypothetical. I do believe Alabama will win, but this is a hypothetical scenario. And then I was going to say, and then Florida State comes out and beats the brakes off of fucking Georgia. Beats them like 55-10 just to sit there and give college football. Then everybody who's on the committee, everybody that's on ESPN, and your Kirk Herbstreit, your Stephen A. Smith, and sorry, I like Pat McAfee, I do, but the sheer fact anybody who's simped out for this should be fired. You should lose your job. There's no reason that you have that position right now on that network if you can't do anything better than this. Because we know that the committee is wrong. If you come out and just say the committee is wrong, I don't like it, I believe that Alabama's one of the well, ultimately, I can at least live with that. I can live with that because at least you're going ahead. But whenever you're telling me that Alabama deserves to be in there, you're saying that Georgia should probably be in there over Texas, I can't take you seriously anymore.
Yeah, and that was what Deion Sanders said. He said Texas had no business being in there. If anything, it should have been Florida State and Bama.
Yeah, no. Alabama shouldn't be in there. That's it, period. End of story. If Alabama wanted to be in there, they should have beat Texas. But the sheer fact is you can't make a case for Alabama being in there. And I don't care what any of y'all say. So, with that being said, I do believe that this game will be rigged. I think it will be rigged for Georgia, and I don't think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be rigged so bad that it's going to be something similar to what I said that the Michigan Florida State or the Michigan Alabama game, 35-21. That's what I got. 35 for Georgia.
They have to justify why Bama made the playoffs, but they also have to justify why they didn't put Florida State in.
Right.
So it makes, this adds for a great storyline. They put in Bama. They know people are going to talk about this for the next month because these games are not played till the 1st, I think, of January.
Right.
So they're not going to be played till the 1st of January. So it's going to be talked about for the whole month. Nobody cares about these other college football games, the ones that are starting on the 16th all the way up until the first. Like no one cares about the 16th to the 31st. Let's just be honest. Once the first starts, then they'll talk about the 6 bowl games, that really only 3 of them matter, and the other 3 kind of somewhat matter to put into the storyline for next year for the top 12. So they got to promote why they justified putting Bama in and why they have to justify keeping Florida State out. It makes sense. Your theory or what you believe is going to be the case from a rig standpoint. It makes sense to promote that. It's just the thing is you bury Michigan, you probably take less draft stock off of McCarthy. I'm not going to say the kid's not going to be drafted, phenomenal quarterback, but you're probably going to bury what's left of John Harbaugh's stigma, which he already has a negative stigma, but now you just completely bury what's left of him in Michigan. And then not to mention Texas up and coming. I mean, they can still kind of resurge from this because they're going to be in the SEC next year anyway. So you can go with the whole heel storyline for that, them going heel. And then, of course, Washington, well, at least they made it kind of ordeal. You could probably bury them, but it's just Michigan, in my opinion, has the most to lose because of the fact that they've already had a bad stigma with the whole cheating scandal. But it's like you said, they have to justify why they're allowing Alabama in, and they're going to say, well, see, look, they won the Natty. Prodigal?
Yeah. Yeah, they're going to end up like you're in theory, if you're booking it from a WWE standpoint, but that's too risky. You know what I'm saying? It's too risky. My nose is starting to try to bleed and stuff. It must be pretty dry. But
you all right?
Yeah. I get what you're trying to say, right?
Okay, this is what I think makes sense. Even if Bama wins, they could put Texas over by saying, well, they're going to SEC next year, and they're an up-and-coming new powerhouse team in the SEC. So Texas could win out even if they get screwed in this, The only team you're really burying is Michigan. And Florida State, because you have to justify why you kept Florida State out. The Florida State gets buried by Georgia, and you can run with that storyline. Hey, see, we told you they're not that good. Here's
the deal, though. Texas has already beat Alabama. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And we know that Texas beat Alabama, so they would be better than Alabama, right?
Facts.
They beat Alabama for the national championship. That's only proving what we already know. You know what I'm saying? Texas was better than Alabama. You fucked over Florida to put in Alabama. So now you got to justify why you put in Alabama. And I think that, rigging the game against Texas, and like I said, Washington beat us last year. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know, did Sam Ehlinger play that game? Or not Sam Ehlinger, did fucking Quinn play that game?
No, he didn't.
Oh, okay. So, but Bijan was still there, but I don't know if he's there. But anyways, they got to prove putting out Alabama in. And I think that we know that they're going to screw over Michigan. And if Texas were to beat Alabama again, then that would be like, well, then we should have just put in Florida State. See what Florida State would have did. I would have seen Florida State versus Texas anyway. That would have been my dream matchup. I would have rather had Florida State be number 2 and us be number 3, and Washington be number 4, and then Alabama be number 5, looking at us play Florida State for the first time ever. That was the dream matchup. But we didn't get it this year, and they fucked over Florida State. But now, I hope Florida State dominates. I hope they dominate Georgia. I really do, because what they did was crooked as hell. Everybody knows it. You can't justify it.
Facts.
It's what you say. It doesn't matter. There's no way in hell that you put Alabama in over an undefeated Florida State that won their title and then expect everybody to be okay and to be cool with it.
Facts.
So I mean, I do think that the game will be rigged. I think it'll be rigged for Georgia. I think they'll say, see, because I mean, you would have a 14-0, and you have 14-0 in Florida State as, and then if Alabama wins, it'd be a 14-1 Alabama.
So I'm curious to know, or curious to ask you, do you think that they're going to promote Florida State next year for the top 12 and maybe give them a push to win?
Dude, I don't know because they don't like the ACC right now.
Yeah.
The ACC voted against the Big 12 or the 12. And I'm going to tell you something right now. If you think that the fucking 12-team playoffs is going to change fuck all, I told you how to fix it. I said you do 8 super conferences, you have your playoffs in between there, and then they play each other to see who's going to be the Final Four. And that's the only way that you're going to be able
like have your championship game be the semifinal. Is basically
Right.
what you're saying, and then you put your 4 teams in based on that. So you just have 8 conferences. You make your conference championship game,
right, and then
and that's 8, and then the Final 4 make the college playoff.
Yeah, after those 8 make their titles and they win their titles, then they play to see who gets in the Final 4, and then from there, then you'll get a national championship.
Got you.
And so that way it's only. You're only doing the first. You're only doing 2. It's only adding in 2 extra games to that. You know what I'm saying? Or actually, it's only adding in 1 extra game to your Final 4 game.
Oh yeah. So in other words, you win if you have 8 conferences. You win your conference. You're in those 8, those top 8. Then you rank them 1, 8, 2, 7, 3, 6, 4, 5. Then it's a playoff.
We're in the Big 12 conference, right? So let's see. Okay, we're Texas. We win our conference. We play the ACC champion to see who's going to get into that top 4. So Texas, Florida State, and whoever wins that gets one of those 4 spots.
Nice.
Is playing for the Pac-12, and then you have the SEC, Alabama. You play each other to see who gets one of those spots. And
nice.
Then you get you get other conferences around there. And then the Final 4 that are left are the Final 4 that are going to play for your national championship, and then all the rest. Because I can tell you exactly, this is exactly how your 12-team playoff is going to play out. You're going to end up having number 1 Georgia, and I'm just going off of what the metrics are this year. You're going to have number 3 Alabama, have number 2 Michigan. You're going to have number 3 Alabama. You're going to have number 4 Texas. You're going to have number 5 Ohio State, number 6 Oklahoma. And it's going to be all fucking Big 10 SEC teams again. And you'll have maybe 2 spots. And this is if you're lucky that you're Pac-12 champion,
or a Liberty, or somebody gets in. Yeah.
That your Baylor's and your fucking Florida States and all your other teams in these other conferences are going to have to fight to get those spots. And like you said, Liberty will probably get one because they'll be the jobber team. Oh well, we got to give Liberty a spot. Oh my god, it wouldn't be a playoff without Liberty. So give Alabama a fucking first round where they can go ahead and run the score 70-0, and then
they'll stop a mud hole in their candy ass,
And then they'll say, "Hey, State, we're sorry you're in the ACC. Okay, we got Colorado."
Like Hornswoggle against the Rock,
You're in the Big 12, Dion, and you're not in the SEC. So we're going to tell you to go fuck yourself too. We're going to give that last spot to Notre Dame, and that's what's going to happen. Because that's all they fucking care about, dude. They care about the SEC, the Big 10, and then they'll try and get another team in there that could draw.
Did you hear what Deion Sanders said about Texas earlier? He said that Texas did horrible in recruiting 5-6 years ago, and they were still ranked in the top 10, and that the NCAA was cheating for them and giving them a top 10 spot every year. And I said, well, our recruiting's been good the last 3 or 4 years. Now, maybe in 2017, 2018, I'll give them credit there. We did shitty in recruiting, and they still gave us, I think it was like 12 or something like that to start the AP poll. And then we beat, I think, Notre Dame to start that year or whatever. Was when,
I don't know what fucking Dion has been watching, but if you didn't see the shit, they ranked 3 SEC teams in the top fucking 5, all right? 3 SEC teams. I don't know if you've been seeing that fucking prime time while you're sitting there watching, from fucking Colorado, but I don't know if you see that. but there was three SEC teams. One that Florida State just whipped the dog shit, dog walked all over LSU. That was pretty fucking close to fucking Georgia. And there was three Big Ten teams in the top 10, with Penn State falling at number 7. Because they had to give another team that wasn't a fucking Big Ten or an SEC team that number 6 spot in USC, which is, where the fuck are they? They had us ranked at number 11. I think they had Oklahoma ranked ahead of us. So, I mean, you know, the people who were sitting here ranking these teams on that committee had a fully functional brain. What they would have done was they said, well, who do we think is going to win the SEC championship? Now, they'll say, who do we think is going to win the Big Ten? The Big Ten is the best conference this year. Who do we think is going to win the Big Ten? Michigan. Okay, let's put Michigan at number 1. Okay, you know, SEC did win the title last year. They still could have a pretty. Who's going to win the ACC? Alabama. Let's go ahead and put Alabama at number 2. Okay, who's going to win the Pac-12 championship? Oh, Washington. Washington looks good. We'll go ahead and put Washington at number 3. Who's going to win the ACC? Let's go ahead and put them at number 4. That's going to be Florida State. Okay, who's going to win the Big 12? Let's go ahead and put Texas at number 5. That's the way they should have done it from the beginning. Who is going to win their conferences? And then go ahead and add in LSU, Penn State, and Ohio State after that. You know, that way, if season works out right, one of these teams loses the game, that other team comes back up, fills that spot. You know, Michigan loses, Texas comes in, and then they take that spot. You know what I'm saying? If Georgia loses, or Alabama loses, which they did, they lost to us, then we take that spot. And we lose to Oklahoma, and then Georgia moves back in, you know, and that's how it should go. But that's not how they do this shit. They put the teams that they want to see at the end of the year, at the beginning of the year in these spots, and if they lose, they always have a team over there that's that fucking one. They don't do it fair. They don't do the shit right. It's no consistent metric. So Dion wants to sit there and say, well, they gave Texas a 12? Oh, God, they gave us 12? Lord, they must have been trying to position us to be in the national championship, giving us that high spot.
We don't get that. I mean, okay, to be fair, I will give him credit. I do think that Texas and OU gets a little biased for our conference, but it doesn't really get us past that. So, like over the Baylors, Oklahoma States that might have had a better recruiting season, we got a higher rank than them. Okay, I'll give you credit where credit's due. I think he does make a good point. But at the same time, the Big 12 conference is literally a joke anyway, because the winner hardly even makes the. If you look at 9 college playoffs, OU made it twice, we made it once.
But see, that's the problem. That's the problem. That doesn't make the Big 12 a joke. That makes the fucking committee a joke.
Yeah.
Because they end up fucking over, and you didn't have any ideas. It's all based on favoritism. This is why I don't watch the sport anymore. Everybody's like, well, everybody watches the SEC. No, motherfucker. Whenever the season's over, whenever Texas is done, I'm getting off to. I'm not supporting Texas next year because I'm not going to support the SEC.
Well, I guess I was proving to Dion's point that there's not really much favoritism. Like, in other words, the little favoritism Texas might get or OU gets is nowhere near compared to what Bama, the Georgias, and the Notre Dames get. Let's not even go over Notre Dame, who doesn't even have a conference, and yet they're constantly ranked in the top 5 every year just for the name.
Yeah, Ohio State. And, you know, Texas is a bigger fucking name than all of them anyways. Texas is going to draw. You know what I'm saying? They're the biggest fucking money generator in the fucking. So, of course, you know, you could go ahead and say, oh, Texas was put at number 12 and Baylor was put at number 19. Well, cry me a fucking river, all right? Whenever Baylor, that's not the same thing as putting Texas, Oklahoma, Baylor, and fucking Texas Tech in the top 4 spots. That's not the same fucking thing.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying? That's totally fucking different.
Yeah.
So it's put at number 12. That doesn't say, oh, well, they're trying to rig it for Texas. That's stupid. Because whenever Baylor beats Texas that year, guess what happens to Texas? They're not ranked number 12 anymore. They're going to be ranked back to number 20 or something. And then they're going to have to fight their way and claw their way back into the bowl game.
And then, and every time Texas, let's say for the years that we did win the Big 12 championship in 2017, 2018, 2019, who do we play? Missouri, the Utah Aggies. We played Georgia in the Sugar Bowl was probably the closest thing to a college playoff we've ever had. And nobody even gave a shit about that game. But that so it's not, again, the little bias we get is like you said, it's not like it's Texas and OU is 1 and 2. We're like fucking 13 and 18 in the AP poll, and then OU will always lose a game to fucking Baylor or somebody, and some upset Texas will lose to Kansas State and 2 other teams, and we've got 3 losses already. So what does it matter?
Yeah. And so, yeah, that's stupid. They're not rigging games for us, Dion. They're not rigging the goddamn season for us. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But I guarantee you that if Alabama loses 1 game, let's say they lose to an LSU this year, right? Well,
or
Alabama,
Auburn, or they'll lose to they'll lose a conference game.
They'll lose to LSU, who's ranked number 5. And they're number 3. So Alabama will likely fall down to like number 8 or 9, 10 to that 12th spot. If Texas loses a game, they fall out of the whole fucking thing. You know what I'm saying? Because they're ranked 12. It's not the same shit.
In fact, Auburn had 3 losses 1 year, and they were ranked 7 or 6. Remember that? I don't know if you remember that shit.
Who was it?
Auburn lost 3 games and almost had a shot to make the college playoff.
I'm pretty sure that Missouri has lost like 2 or 3 games, I think. I think they might have lost.
Yeah. Alabama's had 2 losses before, and they've tried making an argument they should have gotten in.
That was one. So it's not the same shit. And we already stand as a college football. This is why I said, this will be the last year. I'm probably going to pick another team just to root for. So, we'll
do a video. We'll do a video on that too.
And we're going to pick a team. So a link is in the description for Stephen Rose's channel. And I know that this is on Facebook. And I know that this is going to be on YouTube eventually. But I put Stephen Rose's link in the channel. Go ahead. Link is in the description because you're going to see us do a selection committee. We're going to go through the Big 12 teams. We're going to see which Big 12 teams that we're going to support. We're going to go ahead and pick from your Colorados, your TCUs, your Oklahoma States, your UFCs, Oregon, Utah, BYU, Baylor. They're all in there, And so we're going to.
I got 2 quick questions before you wrap this up. If Texas, when they go to the SEC, them and OU, how does this pan out storyline-wise? Do you think both of these teams are a heel? Do you think Texas is more of a heel? OU's going to take a back seat, become a face? What do you think the direction that goes to?
Well, I think that Texas, they have Arch Manning. We already know the direction that they want to go. They want to push Texas out there. The great thing is that Texas is automatically going to be a heel. It doesn't matter if they try to pretend like Texas is a face. Texas will never be a face. The rest of this is why it would be great if Texas won the national championship this year. Not necessarily just because this is the last year I'm rooting for Texas, so it's going to be the last year I'm going to be able to root for them. This is the last year that me and Stephen Rose, if they get in there, are going to be able to go down, go to Buffalo Wild Wings and watch the game, has the fucking whatever the fuck he drinks, and then I'm having a glass of and watch the game and root for Texas. This will be the last time. But with that being said, Texas will always be the heel. You know what I'm saying?
So you think they're a heel right now?
They've always been a heel. They're like the Cowboys.
Now let me ask you this. With Texas being in the playoffs this year, do you think that has something to do with them transferring to SEC? Maybe they got a little help there because the SEC bias, or you don't think that plays a role?
I think that Disney's running out of fucking money between Star Wars and the MCU, and people are getting tired of seeing the SEC always Alabama, Georgia, LSU playing Alabama for the title, and Alabama playing Georgia for the title. So they had to add in some star power there, some people to bring some money, and that's why Penn brought in the UFC. That's why the SEC brought in Texas and Oklahoma.
So let me ask you this then. Last question that I have. With Texas and OU, it's a 2-part question. Traveling SEC, is this better for the smaller teams in the Big 12 to compete next year, to promote their brand without Texas and OU? Because nobody knows Big 12 outside of OU and Texas. Let's just be honest, the way that we promote it. So does this help the Big 12 with the addition of the new teams they're getting? Or do you think this takes a step back, or do you think they become stagnant and they're not a powerhouse anymore? What do you think?
I think that, you know, I want to let everybody know first off that the Big 12 still has some pretty good teams in there. You have Oklahoma State, you have Colorado coming in, you have BYU, you have Baylor.
BYU's coming in, Cincinnati I think's coming in.
Right. So those teams, UCF, you have all
Houston's coming in there. Houston, UH Cougars.
So I mean, you have teams coming in. With that being said, here is the deal. Right now, everybody turns on ESPN and pretends like Stephen A. Smith knows what the fuck he's talking about. Which Stephen A. has no fucking clue what he's talking about. Kirk Herbstreit, these motherfuckers are not fucking. They're not experts. They're like Mel Kiper Jr. They're not experts. You know what I'm saying? They're personalities. They're empty suits over there to push a narrative.
They're the shills.
Yeah, that's exactly what the fuck they are. And that's what they're doing right now in college sports. So whenever it comes down to your ACC and your Big 12, you're not really wanted. You know, you've seen how they gut down. I'm pretty sure that fucking the Pac-12 is dead. I think it's only Washington State. Is that the only one that's left?
There's like 2 or 3 teams, but they'll all be gone. They won't have a conference anymore.
Yeah, they're not going to have a conference anymore. And they absolutely gutted that. The Big Ten gutted that. And, you know, the fucking SEC has been poaching our teams. You know what I'm saying? They thought that they could get all this Texas market with Texas A&M. Whenever they realized that Texas is a Texas market, not a Texas A&M market, well, then they had to come back and get Texas and Oklahoma. Because they're, like I said, it's this corporation shit. You know, the BlackRock's trying to fucking accumulate as much shit. But whenever they do that stuff, they just make the product stagnant instead of just leaving the shit like it is and then, you know, allowing these kids, you make the product stagnant. So the only motherfuckers right now watching college football are the people who follow the SEC. Because if you're a Big 12 like me and they screwed over Texas, well, you're like, I'm done watching this shit. I'm going to fucking not watch. I've only watched like a couple of games. I watched the Alabama game because I knew we were going to win. But, you know, for the past, I used to never miss a Texas game, dude. I used to watch every Texas game. You know, if Texas was playing, I was watching it if I could. So now I don't give a shit anymore because, oh, okay, they'll probably end up losing to Oklahoma again. They'll lose to Oklahoma State, and they don't want us in there. They're making it very fucking clear. And even if we do get in there, they're going to put us in a lesser bowl. They're not going to let us in the playoffs. Why? Because we have too much star power. They would rather see Oklahoma in that position because Oklahoma, while they're a good team and they're a perennial powerhouse, they don't have that drawing power like Texas does.
No, they don't.
This market. They don't have the California market like USC does. They don't have the Florida market like Florida State does or Miami does. This is why those teams don't get in those positions. This is why they try to hold those teams down. So whenever you're looking at the market for the Big 12, we don't really have a team. We have Colorado. I think Colorado is a great fucking team, especially with Dion there, brings in a little bit of star power. But we don't really have that team right now. They're going to have to work on it. There's a lot of stuff. You're going to have to pick the ball up and run with it. And, you know, mind you, that you're going to have to work twice as hard as any of these other conferences.
I really wish Texas would reconsider staying in the Big 12 now that all these teams are coming. And, you know, we'd be playing U of H, we'd be playing Cincinnati, we'd be playing Colorado. I would really be looking forward to playing those teams next year as opposed to LSU and Arkansas and Georgia, even though I know they're SEC teams and I've always wanted Texas to go against them. But now I don't have that same feel for it. I really would prefer we would just stay in the Big 12.
Yeah, and it's shitty because what's going to end up happening is they attack these. Now, you know, you have a conference over there. The Pac-12, I forgot where their fucking headquarters were. I think it was in California somewhere. But, you know, that created jobs for them over there in that conference, in that area, right? You have the Big 12 here in Dallas, creates jobs for people who are here, local syndicates and stuff like that. that are affiliated. Whenever Big 12 posts shit, they're not only just picking a team. This isn't just about sports. They're hurting motherfuckers' markets, some people's livelihoods and shit. So the sheer fact is that, I call it the Southeastern Communist Conference pretty much. So, because that's exactly what it is. It's a form of communism. And the sheer fact is that communism can't compete unless this shit is rigged for them. And it's rigged for the SEC. It has been for years. I've been out here telling you. Everybody says you just have sour grapes. You're just jealous. No, I want to watch a real sport, and I want to watch these teams really compete and have the games decided on the field. That's what I want. I want consistency.
I mean, at least for the NFL, you have to. There's a path. You have to either win your division or make a wild card.
Yeah, but this right here, you know what I'm saying? It's always rigged for the certain. It's always rigged for them.
It feels more like a beauty pageant or some sort of
they can't
like popularity contest. It's like high school.
It's not even a popularity contest. They can't compete. They are the fucking participation trophy conference. The SEC is. They've been given these opportunities. They've been given these, and this is the way it's been for about 10, 15 years now. And now people are finally starting to realize how shit it really is. And that's why you get so many people out here calling this stuff out, is because it's not fair. And like I said, you got to think about it, right? You put money down, right? Let's say you went to Vegas. You went there and watched the Florida State practice. You've been following Florida State. You're sitting there saying these kids are good enough to win the national championship. That defense is on point. You still got 2, 3 good running backs, and the quarterback facilitates them pretty well. He's a good compliment to them, but he's not the overall reason why they're winning. And you put down saying, in Vegas, right? You put $100 saying that Florida State is going to win the national title. Well, you know what? You just went ahead, pulled Florida State out of there, and said, you know what? It doesn't matter if you fucking placed your bet at the beginning of the year saying that you thought that Florida State was going to win the title because their defense was, the 20th top-ranked defense, and that they had a solid running game. And, we would like to go ahead and see what this, Rodemaker kid could do, but we don't care. We're going to put them against Georgia. They're not going to win the national championship. So that bet you just made, they just said it doesn't matter, basically.
So you don't think the top 12 is going to have any impact on this?
No, I don't think it's going to change shit at all. I think it's still going to be fucking SEC-laden bullshit.
So you're probably going to see, 6, 7 SEC teams in the playoffs?
Yeah, but, like I said, you had 3 SEC teams in the top, and there's no telling how many were in the top 20 altogether. I'm pretty sure it was at least 5 altogether ranked in the top 20.
Yeah.
I've seen as many as 4 in the top 10 a couple of years ago, I think. And so, no, they stack the deck for the SEC every year. And I say it's rigged every year because whenever you're sitting there putting in 4 SEC teams in the top 10, where you're automatically giving the SEC a 40% chance of winning it.
Facts, and you got 11 or 12 conferences already. 4 of them are just for 1.
Yeah, right. And so you're giving 60% to the other 5 fucking conferences. So you're not giving them,
the other 10 conferences. Yeah.
So, I mean, you're not giving them enough chance. So you're automatically stacking the deck. And so, the sheer fact is that a lot of you kind of clownish looking sports fans that like to see a competitive sport, because this isn't WWE. It's never going to be WWE. This is a problem with the NFL as well. So take warning, is you're not going to be able to market football and college football like you do the WWE.
Okay. So what you're saying is if you had it your way, and you would just have 8 conferences, and the conference championship game of each one would be the semifinal, right? After the championship games are played, each conference has a champion, and those 8 make the playoffs.
Well, what you do is it's essentially a playoff, essentially.
I mean, basically, it's a playoff game.
Yeah, it's a playoff game. So you have 8 conferences, right?
And a champion of each, that's 8 teams.
Yeah. So you go ahead and have 8 teams. And then, to decide who gets those 4 spots, those 2 conference championships, and you can do round robin, or you can schedule. Okay, it's the Big 12 versus.
Or you can rank them based on schedule. I mean, based on strength of schedule.
Yeah.
Or record. Who has the better record?
Yeah. So you go ahead and have these champions. You'll get one conference to play one conference champion and another conference to play the other conference champion. That'll give you 4. Then you go ahead and have those 4 teams play each other to see who plays the championship. And
that's like my idea. I like that. I think get all 8 conference champions and then go by record. So if there's 4 of them went undefeated, then they all got to be a top 4. And then those bottom 4 with 1 or 2 losses could be ranked 5 to 8. And then so the 1 through 4, you go based on strength of schedule, who had the best strength of schedule. And you go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6, 7, 8. So let's say the 8th seed had a conference championship with 2 losses and they had the worst loss record. They'll be going up against the best strength of schedule number 1 seed.
Right.
That's undefeated. I like that.
Yeah. That's the only way that you're going to really get it to where it's going to make any kind of sense and you're going to get a legitimate championship. Because I don't count any of this shit that we've had with this 4-team playoff committee as a real champion. It's hard.
Because ultimately the best 2 teams, let's say in those top 8 conferences, you want to keep those two teams at 1 and 2 so that the only time they meet is in the championship game. But that's assuming they went out.
Yeah.
But you want to rank it accordingly like that. So like, let's say, for example, if hypothetically Michigan was 1, and let's just say, let's say they're at 1, and let's say Washington. Who's number 2? Washington, right?
Washington, yeah.
So then you would have Michigan and Washington 2, and whoever's number 8 is would play Michigan, and who's ever 7 would play Washington. Texas would be 3, so they would play up against who number 6 is, and then number 4 and 5 would be in the middle. So like Florida State would be taking on Alabama in the first round.
Say you separate Michigan and Ohio State, and Ohio State's number 6 right now. So they just won their championship. They're number 6. You would have Texas take on Ohio State because they're right, and then you would have Michigan take on who's number 12, Oklahoma, right?
Yeah,
and then but you do it from their own perspective conferences. Like
from each perspective conference. So whoever the conference champions are, so you'd have to take all the conference champions from the Pac-12. Well, currently, if you did it this year, Pac-12, ACC, and then all the rest of them.
Yeah, and then you have one extra game. Like this week, they would be playing it because they had their conference championships last week or the week before.
Remember, Liberty won, so Liberty would be in there too.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah, freaking out. So you'd have them sit there and play each other. And then you had to sit there and tell Notre Dame, if you want to go ahead and play for a national title again, you're going to have to join a conference. You can't just independently walk in these motherfuckers anymore.
From what I was told, that Notre Dame has a large contract with NBC, so it encourages them to stay out of the conference. So they got a big $30 billion deal with NBC, and they televise all the Notre Dame games on Channel 2 or Channel 12, whatever you want to call it, NBC. So it encourages. There's no pressure for Notre Dame to have to join, but I agree these independent teams need to join a conference.
You need to join a conference, or else you don't get it. You get to go ahead and play independently, but you're just not going to play for a title.
What do you think about Notre Dame joining the Big 12? I think that would be a good
I
deal.
think great. I think that would help us out. I would be all for Notre Dame coming in. I always thought that the Big 12 should have all the religious schools, which is Notre Dame, TCU, Baylor,
BYU,
yeah, and then have like the military schools at the same time. Call it church and state, but that'd be cool. But yeah, I'd like it if they would join the Bible Belt Conference. And
we can recruit Army and Navy, Air Force.
And then we could just set up like 4 different divisions and just have our own fucking championship. We could probably do.
Well, for Division 3 football does have a top 8 playoff. Isn't it crazy how they've been doing that for like 20 years? But Division 2, Division 1 haven't?
Here's what we could do. Bring in Notre Dame, like you said, Navy, Air Force, Army, and then we'll go to the ACC and say, hey, Florida State. It looks like they screwed you, Miami, and all you people pretty badly here recently. Your Virginia Techs and shit. Some 16 teams, we got some 16 teams. You know what? Let's say, fuck the fucking college football playoff, and then we'll just go ahead and form our own alliance, and then just form our own little playoffs and shit like that, and just have like certain divisions like the NFL does, have 4 teams per division, and then you rotate and play out a schedule and stuff like that. And then at the end of the year, we'll play the college Super Bowl, and then say,
oh. And we'll get a contract through like USA Network or something.
yeah, promote the shit out of it, and then we'll say if you want to stay on some of this action.
Army and Navy aren't and Air Force, aren't they in a conference or no?
I think that they are, but I know they play each other.
I know Notre Dame and BYU are not, but BYU's changing that. But Notre Dame and I think there's like 4 or 5 other schools that don't have a conference, right? They're called independent.
Yeah, I think that there's a few of them. Like,
they should just call themselves. I don't understand why don't they just declare that a division in itself or a conference in itself?
They have like teams that they'll jump in like every once in a while Notre Dame will play in a conference. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The conference to play in. But yeah, bring them to the big club.
Hey, I don't see Dion bitching about that, about how Notre Dame was fucking, getting fucking preferential treatment, getting their own NBC network and, don't have to join a conference and shit,
Yeah, so let's go ahead and bring in Notre Dame. We'll make some deals with the ACC and say, hey, we'll just go ahead and start scheduling each other and shit like that and just do a Super Bowl type thing.
Isn't it funny, though, how the storyline changed? First, it's Alabama doesn't deserve to get in. Now they're throwing Texas under the bus. Well, they don't deserve to get in either. They just drug us into the conversation,
Yeah, but, all right, we beat you, motherfuckers. So that's the one thing that pissed off ESPN is they couldn't put in Alabama without putting us in.
Oh, facts. Oh, man, if Alabama would have beat us, obviously they probably would have snubbed Florida State, put Georgia in.
I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't still snub, State. But let's say that if it was, if the shoe was on the other foot and it had come down to Texas getting in, and they beat Oklahoma, who had won 2 consecutive national championships, and Texas lost to Alabama 1 game, but they beat Oklahoma for the championship, and they were a 1-loss team. They would have kept Florida State in, even if it was at number 4 or under Alabama. They would have kept Florida State in and told us to go get fucked.
Imagine this. Imagine this storyline. Oregon beats Washington, right? Texas wins their national championship game. Georgia beats Bama, right? And they go, okay, we've gone through all this. Georgia's won. We're gonna put Michigan. We're gonna put Michigan at 2. We're gonna put Bama at no. We're gonna put number 3 is what we're gonna put Alabama at 3 and put fucking Ohio State at 4.
Dude, and they're still talking about this shit, dude. They're like,
Washington.
I believe you hear the dumbass talk about on ESPN all the time. They're like, well, I believe, really, if we're talking about the best 4, that should be Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, Michigan. I've heard like Curve Street say that shit, or one of them goofs on ESPN say that. And
if
I'm
they
like,
had it their way, that would have been their top 4.
That would be their top, dude. That's what they wanted. So, anyways, man, I'm gonna have to wrap this video up. I gotta get up and go to work.
Are you gonna upload it to your YouTube channel so that way I can upload it?
Yeah, but it's gonna be tomorrow sometime. So.
All right, please make sure you do, and thank you for having me on, man.
All right, man. Well, y'all people, tell us what you think. You like, follow, friend. This is gonna be maybe subscribe on YouTube because I gotta unload this because fucking YouTube won't let me live stream anymore. Do the shit the internet tells us to do to get over. And for now, we're out.
Bye.